Good morning, YouTube. Man, it is a beautiful day in April here in southern Tennessee. Um, just absolutely beautiful today. A little bit cool for April. As you can see behind me, somewhere over there, my dogwood tree still has dogwood blooms on it, still showing the first signs of spring. Um, just, it'd be a beautiful day to be outside, but we're not going to be outside today. No, not a car project. I am going to redo my kitchen pantry. So, we've lived in this house for about 5 years. Just the builder that built it put the old closet-made wire shelving in here, and it's just time. We've never really been able to fit much in the pantry, so we're going to redo it and reorganize it. So let's go inside and see the pantry. So behold the pantry. Don't judge based on what's in there. As you can see, the wire shelving is not very deep. There's a lot of wasted space in here. If you look on the sides of it, there's a whole lot of room that we could make use of if we made the shelves deeper. And so that is what we're going to do. We're going to make the shelves deeper. We're going to add some drawers for canned goods so that the canned goods will be nice and organized. Even add a place for Cokes and that kind of stuff. And I think when we get done with it, hopefully we'll all be impressed. So stay tuned. More to come. Okay, back to the pantry. So we now have the pantry empty. It is time to remove this wire shelving. It's not a terrible hard process. You just take these pins, you pull the pins out, and then the little plastic piece will pull out, and then the bracket will come off of the brackets will come right off the wall. So I'm going to do that. I'm not going to bore you with the process of doing that, and we'll come back when it's empty. So I've got the top shelf out. You can see the holes where the anchors once held that shelf into place in it. And the thought occurred to me that for those of you that have never taken one of these apart, that I might do one for you. They're pretty simple, but it also might not be intuitive. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's actually a little slot in that head. That is a pin. It is not a screw. It will not come out. So just get you a good pair of pliers, get you a good grip on that, and then just work it out. And in this case, my anchor came with it, which is okay. Now, eventually we would take that out, but normally I would take a little more care in taking that anchor out to keep from damaging the drywall. So now that that is out, this particular brace will come loose, maybe. Now let's get my screwdriver off of there. And then, well, now it's loose. So this shelf will actually lift right up out of these side brackets. And as long as those are not in the way, the shelf sometimes will sit right up like that. But to get the shelf out and out of our way, let me angle my camera a little bit. Let's flex it just a little more. Alright, you see these little brackets right here? They literally just, they have a little pop top on them, and the pin for those right there. But literally what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through here and raise each of these little protective covers up. And yes, I've got two more to do, and I'm not showing you those. But once you get those covers up, you can literally take this and pop it right up out of that and lift the shelf out of your way. Now that the shelf is out of the way, we can focus on removing these brackets. So again, just grab your pliers, get a good grip on it, pull it out. There's your pin. And then now that the pin's out, just gently maneuver this guy out of the wall, trying to minimize the damage to the drywall as we pull it out. As you can see, there's our bracket. So I'm going to go and do that to the rest of them. And now you know how to remove them. Actually, let's do one of these side ones real quick. They're pretty much the same, but I'll do one of these for you too. So again, just take our trusty pair of pliers, and I'm putting pressure on this to hold it, just so that it doesn't try to come out and rip a bunch of drywall when it comes out. So we'll take that, just, whoops, and I got the camera. All right, there we go. And I'll take this guy and work it out. And then we take, my wife's over on the couch looking at me like I'm insane, talking to myself, but it's all good. And then you just work this guy loose. And sometimes you might need a little gentle persuasion, not too much though, because you don't want to damage your drywall. This guy is stuck a little bit harder than usually. Right, there we go. And out it comes. Voila. So I will get the rest of them out and we'll have a clean closet. So now that we have our closet cleaned out, one of the things you're probably going to want to do, depending on what you're doing in your closet, is you'll probably want to patch these holes up. You'll notice that, you know, over time, got spill marks and scratch marks on the walls. You'll want to determine what of these you need to patch now and which ones you can leave depending on what you're going to cover up. In my case, I will have supports along the side walls that are going to come out 16 inches from the corner, so these will be hidden. My back walls, however, are going to be exposed through the shelving that I'm going to put up. So I am going to grab some mud and patch these holes, and then run a quick coat of paint over it so that wall doesn't look quite so bad when we have a finished product. So more to come, back in a bit. So my next step in this phase is, you know what, let me flip sides here so that we have light. I've got to patch all these holes that are in the wall. So if you've never done this, I'm going to make a disclaimer that I'm not a professional. I've just done this a bunch of times. What you want to do is, as you pulled out your anchors, you probably got stuff that got pulled out with them. And so there is stuff protruding out of the hole. Just push all that stuff back in so that, you know, so that it's flat. And you can even use the butt end of your trowel handle and kind of indent it a little bit, because what's going to happen is as you put mud on these, you will fill in the holes. So it's okay if these are actually indented in. Yeah, so it's actually okay if they're indented in, because you're going to fill them up with mud anyway. So let me flip the camera around. We'll do this. I'm going to grab the butt end of my trowel, and I'll just kind of show you. So I've got a little, yeah, it depends on how much you have to push in. I usually use the bigger end, and I'll take it and just kind of gently work that back in, and maybe even twist it a little bit so that when I'm done, I have this nice smooth hole that when I put mud on it, it's going to fill in that gap, and it will look nice once it dries and I paint it. So you can see this one. Let me get to the side of it. See, this one's really rough. So this one might take a little bit of doing. I'll use my fingers just to move all the fibers back toward the center, and I'll just take that and kind of push it back in. Now I've got, maybe you can actually tell that I've actually got a little dent in there, so that when I put mud on this, it will fill that up. So yeah, so here's another one. So I'm gonna go through these and fix these, and I'll come back when we're gonna put some mud on. Okay. All right. So I have all of my holes prepped and ready. It's time to start filling them. So I had me some joint compound. Don't worry about the can. I just used a new one. Turns out my joint compound was actually a little dried out, so I added just a little bit of water to it to give it a good spreading consistency. Don't use much. It does not take much to make mud literal out of this. So I had a whole bunch of joint compound that I'll probably not use to this particular container, just to patch these holes. So usually what I do, I'll grab me a glop on the end of that like so, and I'll just kind of pack it in that hole. Pack it in the hole. Wipe it off so that it's clean, and then you can just kind of skate over the top of it and smooth it out. I know it'll be hard to see from there what these look like, but they actually, just that little simple motion, I might just throw a little bit more in there. Sometimes I'll do this 2 or 3 times just to kind of pack that hole, and then just skate across the top of it. Wipe the trowel clean, do it again. It's okay to leave some excess on here, because there again, it'll dry, it'll shrink a little bit. So if you leave a little excess on here, when you're done, when it dries, you're going to go over this with a fine grit sandpaper anyway, smooth it out, be good as new. All right, I'm going to fix the rest of these holes. We'll be back in a bit. So I have all of my drywall holes patched. We're going to let them dry. You'll notice as you do these that you'll get little areas where it's going to bubble up like that. That's okay. Like I said, you're going to come back with a block sand that, and it'll be all smooth when you're done with it. What you don't want is, like, this one's already concaved a little bit. It'll probably be okay right there. It probably won't be seen, just because I know what I'm doing with it. I may not mess with that one, but the rest of them, you just want to try to get them. You want to get them to where they actually pop up just a little bit from the surface. That way, when you sand them, they get knocked back down. So maybe I should take a moment and talk about what we're doing with this. It's not going to be just plain shelves. So what I want to do is, I found a picture on Pinterest, which I will pin in the description of this video, just because I don't want to include it in the video and get busted for copyright infringement or whatever. But basically what I've done is I have drawn out what I want this thing to look like. So let me show you that. So I've drawn this out. This is a scale of 1 inch equals a foot. And so basically what we're going to have here is, starting at the bottom. Now, one thing you'll note is this dash line is my door frame, because my closet, hello, Mr. Bug, where'd you come from? Nobody hate me for doing that. So my closet is actually wider than the door frame, so I just dashed this line in for the door frame just so I would see where it was on both sides. This is the top of the door frame, and this is my proposed top shelf at 6 feet above the finished floor. So starting from the bottom, what I plan to do, and my intention is to hang all of this so that none of this is actually sitting on the floor. So this line right here, I actually should have erased. This line actually doesn't exist here. But from 15 inches above the floor will be my first shelf on this side and this side. This is going to be a hanging basket on sliders, drawer slides, for stuff like potatoes and onions. Then I've got a 9-inch drawer. It's not going to be a fully enclosed drawer. You'll see what it looks like when I get done with it. It's more like a tray. That's gonna for tall, like tall cans, quart-sized jars, that kind of stuff. And then these three are 6-inch drawers that are going to be on slides. I figure, maybe bread, soft drinks, canned drinks, stuff like that, and then canned goods, normal canned goods will go in here. And then each of these cubbies, it's 11-inch, 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 9-inch, 9-inch, and then the same on the other side. At least that's the way I have it drawn out. And then what we will end up doing, because I'm going to pin the shelves, they can be adjusted later. We can just drill new slots and shrink the shelves or enlarge the shelves, whatever we want, or take a shelf out if we want. So these shelves are not going to be secure, except for, I haven't drawn this in. This shelf right here will probably be one continuous shelf across the top. And I'm going to do that just for support purposes to try to hold this thing to the wall. What I'm trying to avoid is segregating my floor space down here with a leg so that I can put, bottled water, or, we recycle our plastic bags, so shove our recycled plastic bags into there or whatever. But I'm trying not to segregate it by a leg coming down there. We might have to, we'll just have to see. So I've got to see what kind of support I have in the wall to hold this thing up. So that said, while this is drying, because I've got to sand it and I want to put a coat of paint on this to kind of cover up the multitude of of sins and scars and stuff on the wall. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my stud finder, and I'm going to start finding the studs in each of these walls so that I know what I can anchor to. So I'm going to do that, and I'll get my stud finder and give you a peek into the process of doing that. All right, welcome back to my pantry project. I lost power for a couple hours and had to just kind of sit and do nothing because I couldn't do anything. In the meantime, my drywall mud dried up quite nicely, and I went ahead and sanded it. And you just run over this thing with some mild sandpaper. I just used some 60 grit, just knocked the top off of it really quick, and it made everything nice and smooth. So now that everything is smooth, I'm gonna go grab my paint and we'll put a coat of paint on it, and then we'll start hanging shelves. All right, so I have my closet sanded down. I've got a coat of paint everywhere that it needs a coat of paint, and it's drying now. So what I'm fixing to do right now is the two side supports that are gonna support shelves on the sides of both of the walls, I have to trim down. So I have my pieces of wood here. These are actually what they call edge glued panels. It's basically a bunch of different pieces of wood that have been edge glued together. So what I'm going to do is take these panels. I need them to be 5 feet long, so because I want them both to be the same size, I'm going to do a cut at the same time. So I've got them lined up on this end exactly where I want them. I've measured 5 feet, so down on that end I have a line. I'm going to mark it out, and I'm going to cut that end off. Now, these are two pieces of wood, and I want them both the same size, so I'm going to clamp them together, and I'm going to cut both of them at the same time, so that, one, you're not making two cuts. Two, when I cut them, they'll both be the same size. Okay, tip. If you're using a circular saw, which is what I'm going to be doing, I want to show you a couple of cool things about how to make a nice straight line cut. And if your boards are painted, like mine are, put the paint side down, because your blade, as it rotates, it's going to rotate up, and it's going to pull against this side and splinter this side. So it won't splinter it too much, but you want your paint inside to look good, so put your paint inside down and when you cut it. So let me get this thing lined up, and I'll come back and I'll show you a tip for cutting a straight line on these things. Alright, so I have everything prepped and ready to cut. So I wanted to show you what I did though. I'm going to flip the camera and show you a couple little cool tips and tricks that I've learned over the years of doing this. So hold on. All right. So I've measured my wood. This is my cut line. This is where I want things cut. You might notice that I've got these two pieces of wood together and I've got them clamped. And I have this auspicious piece of wood here clamped in a strange place, or a seemingly strange place. Well, this piece of wood is going to be my guide to make sure that I have a nice clean cut. Now my saw, from the outside edge of the guide to the outside edge of the blade, is 1 inch, 1 3/16 inch to the cut line. So I have set, now because I want this line, I have set this guide 1 5/16. Hopefully that focuses. Yeah, there we go. 1 5/16 from the line. And again, measured in a different place just to make sure that we're square across the wood. So now I'm going to go get my saw and I'm going to run it right along that guide, make a nice clean cut, and we'll have both of these two side panels cut exactly the way we want them. One more thing. Obviously, when I cut this, this piece is going to fall off. So I actually have this tripod that I got from my grandfather's woodshed, and I'm just going to support it underneath. Yeah, I'll have to hold on to it and make sure it doesn't go crashing down when I get to the end of it, but that helps support the weight of it. So just a tip. Okay, so we're slowly making progress with our pantry project. So I have the two side panels installed that will support basically the weight of the cabinet in the closet here. So got this one hung as well on both sides. Just my design had these coming up 12 inches above the finished floor. There'll be a brace here, there'll be a shelf here, there'll be another brace that comes across this way. Let me flip the camera for you. Yeah, so I'll put a brace here. I'm going to put a brace across the entire bottom of this to hold the shelves and the two center assemblies that will go in here. So I don't know, me being OCD, you know, I measured out my drill holes just so that they're uniform and they look right. Those are arbitrarily 16 inches apart. Same thing over here. And then an interesting word about improvisation, things that you don't expect to run into. I actually have an intercom system on the other side of this wall right there. So I thought that I would be out of the way of it and not have a problem by drilling this hole here, but when I drilled this hole, I felt it hit something solid. So rather than push through, I took some measurements. I know about where the intercom is in here, and I'm going to just leave these alone. So there won't be a hole, there won't be a screw hole there. But just, you know, just things you run into in crazy projects like this. By the way, my paint job turned out nicely until I accidentally marked the wall with my pen, so or my pencil. But other than that, it's coming along. So I'll check back in just a little bit later and give you another status update. Okay, so we're back. I've been cutting some wood, getting things prepped for assembly. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, this is just kind of hanging there, I'm going to go ahead and mount this board and these two braces. Basically, this board is going to run across the bottom of the cabinet here and support the weight of it. So basically this whole cabinet's just kind of going to rest on that board and most of the weight will be supported by it. Now, you might say that's not enough, and I agree with you. So up here at my last shelf, the top shelf is my door frame. That's the length of my closet. So at my last shelf, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to run another bar underneath this last shelf. I'm going to notch these center vertical pieces here. And then this shelf is going to rest on these side panels. It'll rest on the top of them. And then what I'll do on this top shelf is I'm going to screw into these panels from the top of that shelf into each of those panels. It'll rest on this, and it's going to rest on a bar that's going to go across here. That, I think, should be enough to hold the weight of what's going in this pantry. I've considered putting one halfway up, and I might do that. It's just not, it's not in the plans yet. So anyway, that's where we're at, and I'm going to start mounting these up so that I can start getting stuff hung. Okay, lots happened since the last time you and I were together. Yeah, building custom cabinetry is not easy. It's you'll always find little challenges and nuances. I will say that stud finding is not an exact science. You sometimes just have to, even the best stud finders miss them every once in a while. So finding stuff to anchor to was a little bit of a challenge. Let me show you what we've done. So my base cabinet is in. This is kind of what everything is going to be built off of. The plan is that in here I'm going to drill and pin shelves in this side. On this side I'll probably have a shelf or two, but most of these are going to be drawers for canned goods, breads, that kind of stuff. And then the plan was to leave the bottom open so that I can throw who knows what down there, bottles of water, whatever you might need. So anyway, I am going to get busy cutting more shelves like that one, and once I've got all the shelves cut, then I'll drill and pin them, and then I can enlist someone else, hint hint, to paint them. So I'll be back after that's done.